Hello everyone, welcome back to My Rising Rose with me, Jack Morrigan. Today I'm going to channel Hela, and briefly I want to talk about some of the things that have been going on lately and some of the things that can happen within spiritual awakening in general. As many of you will know, Goddess Medicine starts tomorrow. We're going to be channeling Hela, learning Hela's mastery of the air element over the next 3 months. You can join us live, or you can join the recorded version, follow along at your own pace. So that begins tomorrow as of the time that I'm recording this. But something that I want to talk about is the descended journey of spiritual awakening, because I've been talking to people recently about their own descended awakenings, and one of the things that's coming up is just kind of that it's not really spoken about. Generally what's spoken about is this ascended version of spiritual awakening. Up and out, kind of, you move away from your body, you leave the world, you have some kind of enlightenment experience away from all of that. You discover yourself as pure spirit, separate from your personality, your mind, your body. And the kind of myth of that is that then you are in perfect bliss. You don't experience negative emotions, or you're not really troubled by your emotions, and then you just kind of happily continue on with your life, and that's that. And sometimes when that style is taught, there's this kind of emphasis on pushing through. Like, you just kind of have to push and push and push. And if you do that, then you will eventually, even though it's difficult, you'll break through. And when you break through, everything will be fine forever. And that's not my experience. And it's not the experience, I don't think, of anyone that I've ever met. And it's not the only way that awakening can happen. So awakening doesn't have to go up, it can also go down. It seems to be a little less common when it goes down. But when it goes down, it tends to be more about coming down into our bodies. Like, the body itself becomes the vehicle of spiritual awakening. We can develop a very strong relationship with the earth, with spiritual beings. We can be challenged by meeting the unconscious dimensions of ourself and go through periods of difficulty with that. And generally what's required in this more descended movement is not pushing. So not kind of like trying to push through this stuff, but giving yourself a lot of time and space to meet it, be present with it, learn how to navigate it in a very physical way inside of the body. And the fundamental difference between the ascended and the descended path is that the ascended version looks away and the descended path looks towards. And the ascended path moves away from difficulty, the descended path moves into difficulty. Ultimately, from my experiences of both, to whatever extent those are, from my experience of both, they ultimately get to the same place. Above and below are realized to be the same presence, but somehow it has a slightly different quality depending on which direction it's realized from. So I just wanted to briefly talk about that, but mostly because I don't think it's spoken about enough, and because it can be kind of harmful that it's not spoken about more. It can be damaging to people, because if you're getting all this messaging that's telling you that you need to turn away from your difficulty, you need to kind of push it away, when actually your natural makeup of spiritual awakening is one that requires you to move into it. The pressure to push push away something that you are fundamentally meant to move into can cause a lot of distress. And there's a lot of teachers out there who don't really talk about, and maybe don't understand, this difference between the ascended and the descended path. And as a result, they're just talking about their own experience and their own path, in this case the ascended one, as if it's the only way. And if you're paying a lot of attention to those kinds of teachers, when you need a descended awakening, you're going to get a lot of mixed messaging. They're going to speak very confidently. Oftentimes, the teachers who kind of break through and become well known are the ones who speak very confidently. But just because someone's speaking confidently doesn't mean that they actually know everything. Someone can speak very confidently, say, spiritual awakening is this, and then insert their own unique version of spiritual awakening, their own unique life experience into that slot. They can speak with great confidence and tell you what spiritual awakening is. But it could be completely irrelevant to you. It could be actually quite harmful for you to follow their advice. And that's not to say that they are wrong. It's just to say that they could be missing some very key pieces of information that would be really beneficial to you specifically. So myself and a friend of mine, and I'm sure there are many other people out there as well, are developing more nuanced ways of thinking about spiritual awakening, talking about it, describing it. And hopefully in the coming years that will become more mainstream, and people won't just be obsessed about ascension and can realize that there's a multitude of different paths that are going to be more or less suitable for different people. And then it's more kind of like when you're prescribed medication. It's not that you want just one type of medication. You just want the medication that's going to be right for you in that moment, not for everybody to be given antibiotics or whatever it may be. So just wanted to take a moment to talk about that. But what's happening with me at the moment is linked to that, in that I'm embracing this descended movement of consciousness. And today I went for a walk, and Ella was connecting with me and wanting to kind of initiate me again into a deeper state of relationship with her, so that together we will be able to do what we need to do within goddess medicine. And what was happening was this kind of deeper meeting between myself, my human consciousness, and Hella. And within that meeting, there's a kind of unification that happens. It's something that's been going on for me for a few years, this kind of unification of myself and the beings that I connect with. With the dragons, that's what I think of as a dragon rider, like somebody who knows that they are the dragon that they are connected with. Not on an intellectual level, but like on a literal felt sense level, and not in some kind of self-aggrandizing way, but just in a very plain and simple, ordinary way. So like just in the same way as when you look in the mirror and you go, oh, that's me. When you connect with the energy of that being, you're like, oh yeah, that's me. You know, not a big deal. I don't need to scream and shout about that from the rooftops. I don't need to get really excited about it. You know, it's a nice feeling, but it's not about inflating my ego and making me think that I'm more special than someone else or whatever. It's just how it is. And the same, I have that experience with goddesses. Obviously, my name is Jack Morrigan, and Morrigan isn't my birth name. That's the name that I've taken because of my connection to the goddess, the Morrigan. And I've had those experiences with her, and that's like evolved over time and become quite ordinary. Like it's completely normal for me to connect with her energies and know that that's me on a more kind of fundamental level. Or you could say the being that is Jack is the being that is the Morrigan, you know, and I know that. And so that was happening today with Hella. And again, that's, you know, it's something that's happened before, but it was just a kind of a deeper version of that. It felt more like Hela's spirits becoming one with my human spirit in this body. Like vaguely like a marriage, but not quite as intense or, what's the right word? Kind of legal as that. You know, it doesn't matter if I break that contract, you know, I'm not going to have any negative consequences. It's just a lovely kind of meeting of different dimensions of my own being, the human dimension and this goddess dimension. And the reason I wanted to bring it up was that because through this, it's almost like seeing the world through Hela's eyes and knowing that every single thing that I sense is me. So everything that I can sense with my external senses is me. Like everything that I'm looking at is Hela, if you like, but also is the divinity that is the origin of Hela, or the divinity that is the origin of Jack, you know. So everything that I'm looking at is that, which creates a great sense of peace, because if everything that I'm looking at is my own divinity, why would I be afraid of that? Or why would I try and manipulate and control that? That doesn't make sense within my mind. And then my mind can rest because it doesn't have to try to do those things. So that's coming up like on the external level, but then on the internal level, the same thing's happening. So it's like, oh, okay, there's like some tension in my belly. There's a sort of knot of energy that doesn't feel that nice. But that's also Hela. That's also the divinity that is the origin of Hela. So I don't need to control that either. And even the part of my mind that is kind of looking around for things to control in order to feel safe and satisfied, even that is Hela. Even that is the divinity that is the origin of Hela. And that creates greater internal peace, because it's like, well, I don't need to control my thoughts or emotions, my bodily sensations. And then I can rest. And I'm saying these things, and that doesn't mean that I'm in some kind of absolutely perfect state of bliss and happiness. But it does mean that there's like a kind of releasing of the need to control my internal, external experience, which is nice. Does that mean that's going to last forever? Probably not. That tends to not be this way. Is it a kind of continuation of a process that started some years ago? Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Now, how does that link into what I was talking about before with the ascension and descension? Well, the ascended path is essentially seeking many of the things that I've just described. It's a sense of the dissolution of separation, which is oftentimes what enlightenment is described as, or spiritual awakening. Oneness, or a kind of oneness beyond oneness. There are many things, I'm sure you've heard many, many, many things about what the ascended process is supposed to be like. And I'm experiencing those things from the other direction. But I'm experiencing them through the vehicle of Hela. And in a sense, what she is serving as is the same function that a mystic, like a human mystic, would serve. Mystics often kind of are vehicles of grace. So they take others into the grace that they have discovered within themselves. They awaken the grace within you, within yourself. So a human being can do that, but that's not the only being that can do that. these kind of supernatural beings, if you like, can do it as well, but only if they are enlightened. And this is why I refer to Hela and some of these other beings as the goddesses of the enlightened dark, because they're in the dark, they're in the descended direction of consciousness, and they are enlightened. They know the true nature of their own divinity. They're realized in that respect. They've surrendered to their own divinity. But they've just done that within the form of a goddess, within the depths of the kind of cosmic psyche, if you want to say it like that. So I don't really know where I'm going, with this. I guess just that it's a nice experience, and so I wanted to share a little bit about it, and to put this out there, really for the people who are descended awakening people, who presumably, if you're watching this, is probably you. I think the ascended awakening crowd, if you like, has a lot more attention than the descended movement. So there's a lot more people out there talking about it. So if you've kind of found your way here, if you're gravitating to the things that I'm saying, then chances are that this applies to you. But just some ways that you can kind of see that for yourself is just kind of take a look at your life, like take a look at your own spiritual awakening. Is it something that's been pretty rocky, quite challenging? Do you feel more connected with the earth or the sky? It's funny that it's that literal, but like ascension is literally just like looking up. And if you listen to certain teachers of ascension, they will talk about the sky, they will talk about space, they'll use metaphors involving clouds, the breath, a lot more than they talk about the body, the earth, the depths, all of that kind of stuff. So it's interesting how language kind of reveals the orientation of our awakening and is a reflection of our own internal experience, sometimes without us actually being aware of that. So I don't think I'm actually going to do the channeling. Just getting the sunlight out of my eyes here. I don't think I will do the channeling. I just wanted to come on and talk about this briefly, because I think some people are really going to need to hear it. It can be really tough when you're trying to go through a descended awakening in a world that does very little to acknowledge the existence of descended awakenings. And please don't try and force yourself to become an ascended awakening person if that isn't your natural makeup. Just allow yourself to relax into the reality of your own awakening in the direction that it wants to move. Let yourself kind of surf on the wave of your own awakening and let it take you where it needs to, because that's going to do a lot more for you and your mind and your body than trying to force yourself into somebody else's shape. We have to go our own way, and whatever that way is, it's up to us to find it and to follow it. And generally we'll know that we're doing that because it will feel easier. If what I'm sharing here feels like a relief, like you're feeling like you're really heard and seen and acknowledged, those are all good signs that you're probably more of a descended awakening person, or maybe you're just in a descended awakening phase, but it's important to honor it while it's here. So that's all I really wanted to say. Hope you're all doing good, and I'll talk to you all again soon. But for now, bye-bye.